Good morning, people of Jesus. Because of the lockdown and us still being in phase 4, youth ministry and church will not be meeting for the next period of time. And I just thought it would be useful for us to try and do an online video teaching of some sort. So the plan is to try and do some short, concise form of teaching for you then to be chewing on and reflecting on. And please communicate with us via message or WhatsApp, SMS, anything to that effect, or give me a call if there's anything that I've said that you would like to chat about. For the next period of time, I'd like us to be looking at the series of identity. Just identity. Who are we? Who do you think you are? Who do you want to be? All of those questions, because I think that it's a subject where a lot of people will have an opinion on. The world will have an opinion on who you should be. The Bible has an opinion of who you should be. Churches should have an opinion on who you should be. When you get romantically involved, your boyfriend or girlfriend will have an opinion of who you should be, and your parents will have an opinion of who you should be. And all of these opinions are conflicting and varying, and sometimes we try and please this person or we try and please that person. So the question is, who am I? Who am I? Now, from the world's perspective, the world might want to tell you that, who you are is about the people you hang out with, and the cars you drive, and, that sort of glitzy, glammy lifestyle. And the reason why Fast and Furious is so popular is because it presents a picture of life that people want. Or maybe it's about money. And I know that there was a stage where I was very materially invested growing up. I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to have a certain paycheck at the end of a month, and money became a defining characteristic. Or maybe you define yourself by your sexuality, and that's so prevalent at the moment with this LGBTQIP XYZ community. It becomes an identity. I am either gay or I'm lesbian, and I'm proud, and this is who I am, and that's how we define ourselves. We define ourselves by our sexuality. Or maybe we define ourselves by the way we dress and how we present ourselves to people. So the question is, who am I? Well, many years ago, there was a guy called John Calvin, and he wrote this quote saying, "True wisdom consists in two things: knowledge of God and knowledge of self." And what John Calvin was saying is that for us to truly understand who we are, we have to understand who God is. And for us to understand who God is, we have to understand who we are. And so it is this concentric circle that these it flows from one to the next and keeps flowing. So the question then is, who is God? And in Exodus 3 verse 14, God says this incredible statement where he says, "I am who I am." And the whole concept of that is that God is self-existent. God is defined by himself. He needs nobody to sustain him. He is not motivated, or he's not defined by anybody but himself. And in that particular time period, the gods would demand sacrifices, and people would offer up sacrifices, somehow thinking that they sustained or supported God. But the God of Israel, the God who eventually displayed himself in Jesus Christ, says, "I am who I am. I am God." And the statement then is reduced to this "I am" phrase. So who is God? Well, God is entirely himself. He is not defined by people's perceptions. He's not defined by how people want him to be. He's not defined by anything else but who he chooses to be. He is not determined by the prayers that people offer him. He's not determined by how much money we give. He's not determined by how much we know our Bible. He is outside of everything and sustained entirely in himself. And we will unpack this in a few later sessions. But who is God? God says, "I am who I am." Well, there's this wonderful story of a guy called Jacob. Jacob was born to a man called Isaac. And the story is that Jacob had a twin brother, Esau. And when Esau was born first, and there was this kind of tussling in the actual birthing period where, as Esau was being born, Jacob was trying to grab his heel. And because of that, the people named Esau and Jacob Jacob. And in those days, the name was as much of an identity statement than it was just a title or a phrase. So they thought Jacob meant deceiver or one who comes behind you, and that was basically meant to be the personality and the character type of Jacob. They thought because he grabbed the heel, they named him something that would convey the idea of him being a deceiver. And he lived true to this. In Genesis 27, when his father Isaac was blind and close to death, wanted to bless the eldest son, which was the tradition and the culture at that time, he made it known that he was going to call Esau. And Jacob's mother decided no, Jacob was a favorite. So she said, why don't you go in and pretend to be your brother? Pretend to be Esau. Dress up. Esau was a very hairy man, so she got, I think it was a sheepskin to cover himself, and he walked in there and made the food the way that Isaac liked, and said, here I am, father. But now Jacob, although Isaac, although he was blind, he could hear that this didn't sound like Esau. So he said, who are you? What is your name? What is your name? And Jacob said, my name is Esau. And he said, come here. And he clasped him, he felt him, and everything that he felt said that this was Esau, but everything he heard said it was Jacob. So he said, who are you? What is your name? He says, my name is Esau. Well, he stole his eldest brother's blessing, and then he eventually fled because he thought his eldest brother would kill him. And he went to go and live with a chap called Laban, and eventually married Laban's 2 daughters. And in Genesis 30, 25 to 43, he again deceives his father-in-law. And then on the way back to his mother country, he had an encounter with God in Genesis 32, verse 22 to 32. And what's so telling in that engagement is that he wrestles with God, and God says to him, what is your name? And remember, your name was to convey your character and personality type. It was there to define you. And so as God asks this question, God is saying to him, who are you really? Now you would think that after wrestling with God and understanding that this is no other being, no other mere mortal, you would want to maybe put your best foot forward and present yourself in the most pleasant light. But rather Jacob fully owns up to who he is, and he says, my name is Jacob. So what this story teaches us is that we might lie and deceive people around us. We might present ourselves as Esau instead of Jacob. We might try and vie for the affections of our father and steal the blessings, and we might try and do all of these things and present ourselves as somebody we're not. But one day when we become before God, we will have to be honest. So the question is, who are you? Who are you? I've just got some questions for you to reflect on. Who are you? How do you define yourself? How do you think others define you? How do you want others to define you? Who do you pretend to be when you are with others? What are the aspects about yourself that you value? What are the aspects that you despise? What do you want people to say of you when you are not around? And finally, how do you think God views you?